How do you create a remarkable life? How do you make remarkable decisions when you have too many options? Today, I'm thrilled to introduce my friend Adam Braun. He's the founder of Pencils of Promise and the author of the New York Times bestselling book, The Promise of a Pencil.
Hi, I'm Adam Braun. I'm the author of the bestseller, The Promise of a Pencil, and I'm also the founder of Pencils of Promise, which is an organization that has built more than 300 schools for over 30,000 students around the world and has been driven by a movement of everyday people just like yourself who get involved with the organization to bring a sense of passion and purpose into their life and business.
Let's talk about being resourceful when you start something and you don't have the resources that you now have.
Sure.
How did you go about doing that?
So it's funny, somebody recently asked me, if you're going to start the organization all over again, knowing what you know now, what would you do? And I said, I really thought about it. I thought, I'd probably do exactly what I did, which was I started having coffee with people. I don't drink coffee, so I just drink water. But I'd say, hey, let's go get coffee. And I'd sit and I'd kind of spew my sense of passion and purpose around this organization, my vision for it, and I'd ask them questions. And eventually, one of the questions is, what do you believe in, or what are you best at, and what do you love doing most, and can we find an intersection of those two? And over time, small kind of cohort of volunteers and people that had come to the parties and wanted to get more involved actually showed real interest. And probably 2 months into that process, I went on Vistaprint, which had a promotion for $2.50. They would create, I think, 100 or 250 business cards as a sample or whatever. And I don't really know Photoshop, but I looked it up and I figured out how to Photoshop some stuff. And I made 40 business cards for 40 different people. And I gave them all titles: fundraising manager, advisory board, advisory council, whatever. And I put their names on it, and I put their phone numbers, and I mailed it to them. And they didn't know. Most people didn't know that this was coming. And or I showed up, I went over to my friend's apartment. I was like, hey, I got you something. And they had Pencils of Promise business cards. And what started to occur really quickly is friends of mine, working at Goldman Sachs, they're out at a bar and they're giving out their Pencils of Promise card, not their Goldman Sachs card. Because they were, I think, in a lot of ways more excited to talk about it. It probably was more of a unique conversation. And this groundswell movement really started to evolve very quickly because I spent $100 on 40 sets of business cards. And so I would say that you can find these really creative ways to stretch resources very far, but the most effective way to do it is not to promote the brand or the organization, but to empower other people to become the storytellers, to kind of make it feel like they're the torchbearer.
Some of the challenges or surprising things along the way, can you talk a little bit about those?
One thing that I'll just share, because this is probably, again, pretty relevant for your students. I think a lot of people have this mental block that they feel like they're not qualified to go out and do something.
I'm not an expert yet.
Yeah, I don't know enough.
Give me 10 more years, then I'll have
let me learn some more.
Yeah.
And one thing that I can say with absolute confidence is that not knowing very much was one of the only ways that I was able to get Pencils of Promise off the ground into the place that it's at now. If I knew as much as I knew now, I would have taken a totally different approach and it probably wouldn't have been as successful.
Exactly. So once you have grown it from zero to the numbers we'll talk about, you have a different perspective, top down.
Yep.
Let's come up with a strategy.
That you convince yourself out of certain ideas.
Exactly.
And I do a lot of public speaking, and it started oftentimes on college campuses. And one of the things that I would always share, and I write a little bit about at the end of the book, is the greatest power in youth is the idea that they don't know yet what's impossible, and so they're willing to try. And in that willingness to try, they're the ones who then break down the kind of barriers that others would just deem impossible. As entrepreneurs, it's your responsibility to kind of define where the stake is going to be put in the ground in the future, and said, this is what matters to us, here's where our values stand, this is where we want to be. And then if you kind of express that with this unabounding confidence, I've said before, I'm not special, I'm just really unreasonable. And I think most really good entrepreneurs, there's nothing special about them, they're just absurdly unreasonable. And they're kind of not willing to listen to the societal norms that would bound a lot of other people's thinking. And for us, authenticity, transparency, direct impact, those were tenets that we really wanted to establish from day one. And for any one of your students, I would really critically think, what are the 3 things that 5 years from now, if somebody said, tell me about that company, those are the 3 adjectives they would give, and then live your way into it.
Love it.